Okay, well, let's move on to Tucker Carlson. Did the Lex Fridman podcast, and I haven't really been a follower or viewer of Lex Fridman, and I've been told to watch him. I've been told that he's extremely intelligent, this and that. Though watching him interview Tucker Carlson and sort of the way that he pandered to his audience at the beginning of the interview, because he knew he would get backlash for interviewing Tucker, because he does have a very broad left-wing audience. And I mean, he really pandered to them, in my opinion, at the beginning. It was a nice message, but at the same time, like, what are you apologizing for interviewing Tucker for? Like, why is Tucker the enemy of all, left wing? And it's just crazy. I did a video a while back, or a week or so ago, about Jon Stewart ripping into Tucker Carlson, and I didn't realize that Tucker and Jon Stewart had so much animosity towards each other from this past interview. So we'll watch that really quickly.
Welcome back to Crossfire. As both of our loyal viewers, of course, know, our was all about.
This is, just for clarification, this is back in 2004. During the Bush and Kerry campaign for 2004 presidential run.
Left versus white, black versus... Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crossfire, Jon Stewart.
Thank you.
Thank
You very much. It's very kind of you to say. Now what? Can I say something very quickly? Why do we have to fight? The two of you? Can't we just say something nice about John Kerry right now?
I like John. I care about John Kerry.
And something about President Bush.
He'll be unemployed soon. I failed to tell.
The fact that Tucker is no longer respected by CNN and he's been fired from Fox, the two left and right mainstream media outlets, and then you have Jon Stewart, who's been clearly brought back to do The Daily Show, which softens people to the evils of the left, and the fact that Jon Stewart is being recruited back clearly means he's still willing to do what he's told, whereas Tucker is ousted from the mainstream media because perhaps has never done what he's told. But I did watch this video earlier, and I cannot believe how much of an asshole Jon Stewart was in this interview.
Why do you argue? The two of you? I hate to see it.
We enjoy it.
Let me ask you a question.
Wait, let me ask you a question first.
All right.
Is John Kerry really the best? I mean, I think, John Kerry's not a terrible guy.
Is he the best? I thought Lincoln was good.
Is he the best the Democrats can do?
Is he the best the Democrats can do?
Yeah, this year.
I'd always thought in a democracy, and again, I don't know, I've only lived in this country, that there's a process, what they call them, primaries.
Right.
And they don't always go with the best, but they go with whoever won. So is he the best?
You can hear even his tone of voice. Jon Stewart's tone of voice just says, I'm an asshole. I believe that I am superior to you two at this table. And the way that I am talking is to patronize you. But, yeah, let's keep watching here.
It's funny, and I made a special effort to come on the show today because I have privately, amongst my friends, and also in occasional newspapers and television shows, mentioned this show as being bad. And I felt that wasn't fair, and I should come here and tell you that it's not so much that it's bad as it's hurting America. So I wanted to come here today.
Isn't that funny? To think that he's criticizing back in 2004 that Tucker was hurting America, and he's trying to do it again. He's coming out of the woodwork to reignite his belief that Tucker is bad for America.
See, the thing is, we need your help. Right now you're helping the politicians and the corporations, and we're left out there to mow our lawns.
You just said we're too rough on them when they make mistakes.
No, you're not too rough on them. You're part of their strategies. You're partisan, what do you call it, hacks.
Wait, John, let me tell you something valuable that I think we do that I'd like to see you do.
Something valuable?
Yeah, no, it's
I would
nice
like to hear it.
And I'll tell you, when politicians come on.
Like, I don't even know how Tucker kept it together so well. I'm impressed. Tucker's like 35 years old at this point, and he's really keeping his cool. I mean, I guess he has to. It's his show, but...
Discourse. Here are three of the questions you asked John.
Yeah.
You have a chance to interview the Democratic nominee. You ask him questions such as, quote, how are you holding up? is it hard not to take the attacks personally?
Yeah.
Have you ever flip-flopped, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
Didn't you feel like you got the chance to interview the guy? Why not ask him a real question instead of just suck up to him?
Yeah, how you're holding up is a real suck-up. And I actually was giving him a hot stone massage.
It sounded that way.
Let's not forget that John Kerry and George W. Bush were both Skull and Bones members. Let's quickly watch that video. Which, you know, to those that are unaware, the Skull and Bones organization that, you know, is, I guess, helmed in Yale University. That organization is basically the Western arm of the Illuminati, which was established again in the late 1700s. I have to clarify the date on that.
There's also that Paul Walker movie about...
Right, that was early 2000s. Hey, let's take a look at this video here.
Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
on.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look
Are
forward...
you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret.
So what does that mean? Two Skull and Bones members going at it for the presidency. You got to wonder, could that just be controlled opposition? Could Jon Stewart have been brought in to lift up John Kerry in a way that would sort of control the opposition to ensure that John Kerry was going to be the Democratic nominee instead of, say, I don't know who it was at the time, but I definitely remember other potential nominees. But John Kerry being a Skull and Bones member screams controlled opposition to me. So let's go back to this video here and finish that up.
As we were doing it, you know, it's interesting to hear you talk about
I felt the
my
sparks between
responsibility to the, you know, I didn't realize that, and maybe this explains quite a bit,
No, the opportunity
is that
of
the news organizations look to Comedy Central for their cues on integrity. So what I would suggest is, when you talk about you're holding politicians' feet to the fire, I think that's disingenuous. I think you're...
How are you holding up? I mean, come on.
No. I don't, but my role isn't, I don't
But you
think...
can ask him a real question, don't you think? Instead of saying, you know...
I don't think I have to. By the way, I also asked him, you know, were you in Cambodia? But I didn't really care, because I don't care, because I think it's stupid. Well, but my point is this.
Let's just stop that video. Man, do I ever dislike him now. I really, truly do. I used to love him. I used to think he was so funny. So yeah, let's get back to the Tucker Fridman podcast to see if how Tucker handled the attack from Jon Stewart.
I don't know if you've seen it, but he kind of grilled your supermarket and Subway videos. Have you got a chance to see it?
I haven't seen it, but someone characterized it to me, which is why I pivoted against it early in our conversation about how the price of freedom is living in filth and chaos.
Yeah, that was essentially it. So in 2004, that's 20 years ago, Jon Stewart appeared on Crossfire, a show you hosted. And that was kind of a memorable moment. Can you tell the saga of that as you remember it?
I mean, for me, you know, as I was saying to you before about how it takes a long time to digest and process and understand what happens to you, or at least it does for me. I didn't understand that as a...
I have to say, I watched this entire podcast. Tucker Carlson has to be the most self-aware person that I have ever seen in the public eye. Ever. I mean, you know, Joe Rogan is absolutely up there as well. But I've never seen somebody who's so quick to admit when he's wrong and so quick to take criticism so gracefully. Even throughout this interview, Lex Fridman, you know, he gets pretty hard on Tucker in certain areas, which I can tell he, you know, felt responsible to do for the sake of his left-wing audience. And I can appreciate that because, hey, he's a businessman and he's conducting an entertainment media in his own way. But But I have to say, Tucker Carlson just seems to be one of the most honest, hardworking people in media I've ever seen, period. I encourage anybody to go ahead and watch the entire interview, because he really does show his colors, and he really does. There's just no way that you can interpret anything he says and does as dishonest, because he admits to being wrong the moment criticism hits him. But let's keep hearing what his reaction from this particular response about Jon Stewart.
Particularly significant moment while it was happening. I just got off on a plane from Hawaii. I mean, I was out of it as usual. And I was very literal as usual. And so from my perspective, his criticism of me, to the extent I remember it, was that I was a partisan. Well, he had two criticisms. One, that Crossfire was stupid, which it certainly was. In fact, I'd already given my notice and I was moving on to another company by that point.
See, he already admits, like, right even then and there. Like, no problem. I admit, Crossfire was, and again, he was 35 years old. You know, the growth that I've done since being 35 years old is leaps and bounds. So I can't imagine somebody as self-aware and as honest as Tucker. His capacity for, growth is endless, I'm sure. Let's take another look.
Crossfire was stupid. Crossfire didn't help. Crossfire framed everything as Republican versus Democrat, whatever. It was not helpful to the public discourse. I couldn't agree more. And that's why I left. So that was part of his critique. Fair. I'm not sure I would have admitted it at the time because I worked there, and it's sort of hard to admit you're engaged in an enterprise that's like fundamentally worthless, which it was. But his other point was that I was somehow a partisan or a mindless partisan, which is definitely not true. It is true of him. He is a mindless partisan. But I am not, and I haven't been
can't say that Jon Stewart isn't acting completely partisan in his approach to this potential election. I mean, he's definitely partisan.
I haven't been since I got back from Baghdad at the beginning of the Iraq War, and I realized that the Republican Party, which I'd voted for, my whole life to that point and had supported in general, was like pushing this really horrible thing that was going to hurt the United States, which in time it really did. The Iraq War really hurt the United States. And I realized that I had been on the wrong side of it. I said so publicly immediately. From Baghdad, I said that to the New York Times, and I really meant it. I mean it now. And so to call me partisan, you could call me stupid. You could call me wrong. I certainly have been wrong. But partisan, I just didn't think it was a meaningful. I mean, it's like, that's just not true.
Am I incorrect by saying that Tucker absolutely was calling out the Republicans when he was on Fox before he got fired? I'm pretty sure he was calling out the Republicans, which would insinuate that he's by no means operating from a partisan, position. But that being said, I mean, Jon Stewart has made some really great jokes over the last couple of weeks about Biden and his lack of, competence and cognitive function. But let's keep going.
Opposite of true. So I didn't really take it seriously at all. And I never thought much of him. So I was like, whatever, some buffoon jumping around on my show, grandstanding. But I do think it was recorded. And by the way, that happened right at the moment that YouTube began. I think that was one of the first big YouTube videos. It was one of the first big YouTube videos. So it had a virality that, if that's a word, it went everywhere in a way that didn't used to happen in cable news. I mean, by that point, that was 20 years ago, as you point out. I've been in cable news for 9 years. So before 2004, we would say something on television, and then it would be lost. Like, people could claim they heard it, but you'd have to go to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville archives to get it. Suddenly, everything we said would live forever on the internet, which is good, by the way. That's not bad, but it was a big change for me, and I just couldn't believe how widely that was discussed at the time, because I thought he was not an interesting person. I think he's obviously a very unhappy person. I just didn't take him seriously then, and I don't now. But so anyway, that was it. It was a smaller thing in my life at the time than other people imagine.
Okay, you said a lot of words that will make it sound like you're a bit bitter, even if you're not. So you said unhappy person,
Well, I think
partisan
he's an
person.
unhappy guy. Well, he's definitely partisan for
So
sure.
can you elaborate why you think he's
Well,
partisan?
so I think that, and I see this a lot, not only on the left, but people who believe that whatever political debate they're engaged in is the most important debate in the world. And so they bring an emotional intensity to those debates, and they're inevitably disappointed because no eternal question is solved politically. So they're kind of on the wrong path, right? And they're doomed to frustration.
Well, he's clearly, you can tell he's stewing a bit about Jon Stewart. I mean, why wouldn't he? Jon Stewart made him look like, or at least he tried to make him look like an asshole on his show. And I got to say, I mean, Jon Stewart he just came back did another show the other week. I'm sure he's on. I think he's on tonight again. Is it Mondays that he's on? Yeah. Yeah, so he'll be on tonight. But he was on last Monday, and he was talking about his dog passing. And very sad. I mean, I can feel for him. Seems a little inappropriate to bring it on a comedy show, especially a comedy show about politics in a year where he's been brought back to push for the left. It just seems like they're potentially trying to endear him a little bit more. He thought to himself, oh, this will be a great opportunity for me to tug at the heartstrings of the left, because the left are emotional people. They're all emotional people, and that's how you get them fired up, is you pull on their heartstrings. And, again, so sad that his dog is passed. I mean, terrible. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But seems like an odd place at the beginning of a show to bring it.
Really sets the mood.
Sets the mood of a comedy show. I could be wrong. It could have been at the end of the show. He could have been at the end of the show. Forgive me if I got that wrong. But nonetheless, it just seems like a strange thing to do for a show. But let's take a look at more of this podcast.